This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's Smackdown time. The new kid on the block, the HP Spectre. Blingy, sure, but tasteful, yeah, kind of at the same time. And the Dell XPS 13, the incumbent, the one that goes up against every 13-inch laptop on the planet just about because it's so small, it's so light, it has the bezel-less display, fast Intel Core Skylake CPUs inside, just like this, Core i5, i7 available. We're going to smack them down now. In the battle for the thin and the light and the small and so on, well, the Dell XPS 13 still has the smallest footprint. You can see that with them being side by side. It has an absolutely tiny footprint, but the HP is thinner and lighter. Of course, these are all really lightweight here. The HP is 2.45 pounds. The Dell XPS 13 depends whether you go with non-touch or touch. It goes from 2.6 to 2.8 pounds, the non-touch being the lighter model. So, I mean, gosh, guys, we're talking 4 ounces, 6 ounces, you know what I mean? They're both quite light. So it depends on whether thin is in for you. You want it as thin and light and manila envelope-like as possible. Then it's the HP Spectre. If you want the smallest footprint possible, it's going to be the Dell XPS 13. Now, in terms of price, there's no simple answer to this, but let's start with the simplest possible equation. That's because, you see, the Dell is available in so many configurations. That's how Dell rolls. You can get anything from a real low-end machine to one that is incredibly high-end and very expensive, too, with the XPS. But if we're going for a Core i5 with 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig PCIe SSD, both of these use the newer, faster PCIe SSDs, then you're looking at very close price, $20 difference. It's $1149 currently for the Dell XPS, and that's with the 1080p non-touch screen, which matches the 1080p non-touch screen on the HP. Same specs across the board. So that price is a wash. Now, with the HP, if you want to get the Core i7, that's $80 more, so you're talking $1249. Not much of an upcharge, really. With Dell, they're coupling the Core i7 with the QHD touchscreen, so you have to move up to the more expensive, more high-resolution display. So you're looking in the $1,500 and up category thus, because those two are generally bundled together with Dell configurations there. The difference between a Core i5 and a Core i7 in these Ultrabooks dual-core 15-watt CPUs, it's not really that big. But I know some of you want to go for that really top-of-the-line one that Dell has with the even higher-end Core i7. Still a dual-core 15-watt, but it has Intel Iris graphics for a little extra punch. And that one ranges around $1,749. That's right, $1,750. But again, that comes with that nice QHD touchscreen and all sorts of lovely amenities. With both of these, RAM is soldered on board, so order it with the amount that you want. You can't upgrade it yourself later. The HP is available with 8 gigs of RAM. All day long, that's the only configuration. With Dell, you can go 4, you can get 8, or you can get 16 gigs. So those of you who feel you absolutely must have 16 gigs of RAM in your Ultrabook, well, it would have to be Dell. In terms of fit and finish, both of these are robustly built machines. The HP is a combination of carbon fiber, aluminum, and brass, copper, all that sort of good stuff right there. And we have aluminum alloy for the XPS with carbon fiber, and that carbon fiber finishes right here. The HP shows fingerprints on the outside, the Dell shows fingerprints on the inside. Pick your poison there. Both of them are pretty darn rigid and strong. Both of them have removable bottom covers should you wish to access the internals to upgrade your SSD or eventually replace the battery. Now, in terms of keyboard, both of these have 1.3 millimeters of key travel. The Dell XPS 13 and 15 current generations have not been my favorite, though, because honestly, there's just not enough damping. I feel like I'm bottoming out, and my fingertips just feel like they're getting jarred. It's not that it's a bad quality or cheap keyboard. It's just the way they made their engineering decisions there. The HP, same travel, but the damping is better on it, and there's a tactile clickiness and a sense of precision there that is really one of the best low-travel keyboards I've used. And in fact, I like it as well as some higher travel keyboards. Both of them are backlit, as you can see, and they are backlit in white. Now, the trackpads on these are both pretty good. Fortunately, Windows 10 machines these days all ship with at least decent trackpads, but the Dell is a Microsoft Precision trackpad, and I confess that I find it the most reliable. The HP's isn't bad, but the surface is a little bit more slick, slightly more squirrely, you might say, whereas the Dell's is almost Mac-like, at least as long as you keep that trackpad clean. This trackpad on the Dell will get gummy, and if it does get gummy, it becomes a little less precise, so you have to clean it once in a while. Now, both of these have really lovely displays, 13.3 inches, and Full HD 1920 by 1080 is your only option with the HP because they want to make it so thin and so light. Higher resolution screens and touchscreens do add thickness and do add weight. Dell also has a 1080p display option. They use sharp IGZO versus using IPS on the HP, and both technologies are quite good. Now with the Dell, you do have, again, that QHD high resolution display option if you want it with a touchscreen, so a little more versatile. With the Dell, if you get the 1080p non-touch display, it's matte, which I certainly like because it's less glary and reflective, but some people actually prefer glossy screens, especially when watching movies, because it looks more vibrant. That said, boy, the HP is a bit of a glare monster. It is a glary display. Both of these get bright. You're looking at a little over 300 nits, and they have good contrast ratio of 800 to 1 or so. Good black levels as well. So really, you can see from looking at them that they're pretty much on par. The funny thing about IGZO displays is they look brighter to the human eye if you're in a not terribly brightly lit room, an indoor room or something like that, because the whites tend to be towards the cool white. They just fool you into thinking they're brighter. So I find IGZO a little bit harder on the eyes if you use it in not well lit locations like poorly illuminated offices or home environments where the IPS is a little bit more balanced. Both of these can be color calibrated well for photo and video editing. Well, so far for a Smackdown, these guys have been really running neck and neck, haven't they? Let's talk about heat and cooling and throttling next. Now, both of these get toasty on the bottom, not burning hot, not it's going to singe the hair off your legs hot, but warmer than human body temperature, typically in the rear center areas. If you're pushing them hard, if you're playing games or editing 1080p video, exporting it, that sort of thing, and lengthy clips. I don't mean a 1-minute video, I mean a 20-minute video, that sort of thing. HP has dual fans, and Dell uses a single fan. Now, HP did this fancy hyperbaric cooling to allow it to be very thin, yet have full Intel Core i5 and i7 CPUs in there. And both of these, you'll hear the fan running, certainly if you're working them hard, but with the HP, you'll hear the fans more often. They are not loud, though. It's not capable of being loud because they are pretty darn small fans. So both of them get toasty, not burning hot. Both of them, you will hear the fans. The HP, you'll hear the fans more often, though, particularly if it's plugged in, because actually plugging in and charging generates some heat inside the computer. Now, in terms of throttling, the Dell XPS 13 is a real monster. Dell lets the CPU go all the way up to 88 degrees centigrade. 100's the maximum allowed for its own health, without throttling at all, and that means it goes freely into turbo boost. HP is more conservative. They pretty much don't want to see their CPU going any higher than 65 degrees centigrade. That's real conservative when 100 degrees is the maximum. So that's something they could address with the BIOS and let it go a little bit, higher. So eventually, say you're exporting a 20-minute video, not a 1-minute video, because you won't see this happen. It has to be something running longer. You're exporting a 20-minute video, so it's going to take it about 5 minutes to do that, 10 minutes to do that, maybe even a little bit longer. It will throttle down to its base clock rate. So that isn't so bad. If you've got a 2.5 gigahertz CPU, it'll run at 2.5 gigahertz. It just won't go into turbo boost once it starts throttling if it gets too hot. So it won't extend beyond that speed. So it's not egregious throttling by any means on the HP, but it's something to keep in mind for those who want every bit of performance from your laptop. Now, ports are notably different too. The Dell XPS 13 was one of the first to have a USB-C / also Thunderbolt 3 port, but HP goes ahead and has only USB-C / Thunderbolt 3 ports. It has one USB-C port that's also used for charging and two USB-C and also combo Thunderbolt 3 ports. Legacy, no legacy ports here other than your headphone jack. There isn't even an SD card slot. They do include a USB-C to USB-A. There's a standard USB 3.0 connector dongle in the box, so you can connect a peripheral right away. You don't have to go running to the store to find an adapter to do something simple and basic. The Dell has a couple of legacy ports. It has two USB 3.0 ports and an SD card slot, and of course the headphone jack, and it has that one USB-C Thunderbolt port as well. So a little bit easier for today's lifestyle where not everything involves USB-C just yet without having to get dongles and stuff like that. For display out with both of these, you're going to be using USB-C dongle adapters. Battery life is another thing that potentially sets them apart. Now, I say potentially because it depends with the Dell XPS whether you're getting the 1080p non-touch or the QHD. The 1080p non-touch is the one with the super duper battery life. You can do 9 hours with it, maybe even 10 if you're pushing the brightness not too high, that sort of thing, for light kind of work. I don't mean you're playing Diablo 3 on it or something like that. That obviously will greatly shorten the battery life. So you have the long battery life option with the Dell if you're okay with 1080p non-touch. With the HP Spectre, it's thin. There's not much room for a battery. It has a smaller battery, 38 watt hour versus 52 watt hour in the Dell. And HP may claim 9 hours, but I really don't know how they achieve that. Honestly, it's around 6 hours with light productivity and streaming video work, with 50% brightness, 40% brightness, which is pretty darn bright on it. And if you're pushing it hard, it's going to be a lot less. If you're using it as a video editing rig on the road, for example, you might go down to 3 hours. Now with the QHD touchscreen option, the higher resolution touchscreen option on the Dell, it's somewhere between 6 and 7 hours. So it's just a little bit longer than the HP, not a lot. So then there you have a complicated answer to what seems like a simple question. Depends on which model Dell you're talking about here. But if you go with the non-touch, boy, the battery life is going to kick the pants off that HP Spectre. So that's the Dell XPS 13 versus the HP Spectre. Both of these are available now, and for the Core i5 configurations, the lower end, they're priced pretty close to the same. As you go up in fanciness with the Dell, I mean, you can add things like the high-resolution touchscreen on this, a Core i7, even Intel Iris graphics. The Dell gets much more expensive, but you are getting more horsepower and performance for your money, too. They're both thin, they're both light, they're both extremely well-made machines. Undoubtedly, aesthetics may have a part in the decision for you. Some people are comfortable with the gold strip, some people aren't. Honestly, the keyboard's better on the HP. Surprised that both have the same key travel display. When you're talking about 1080 is equally lovely. And it depends whether you like gloss, because you're getting plenty of glossiness with the HP, or you want the matte display here. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to watch our video reviews of each of these laptops, read our written reviews, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.